Hi, my name is Laura. I am a fourth year medical student and today I'll be answering one of the questions that I am most commonly asked. What is medical school really like? Academically, is it difficult? Conceptually, not really. It's not like you're solving complex maths or chemical equations. In reality, I rarely use maths and virtually nothing beyond basic addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Is there a lot to remember? Yes. There's a mountain of content that you'll not only need to rote learn, but understand and link to all of the other things that you learn too. Do you have to study so much that it means you don't have a life outside of medicine? No. Not unless you choose for it to be that way. Make no mistake, I'm not on the dean's list, but I'd say I sit relatively comfortably in the top third of my cohort whilst keeping an excellent work-life balance, because that's what matters more to me. Of course, there will be times around exams when you have to knuckle down and study, but I don't think that's unique to med. Moving on, the anatomy labs are kind of confronting the first couple of times. I remember looking at an arm one day and there still being chipped nail polish on the fingernails. So that kind of made my stomach turn a bit. Everyone's worried that they'll pass out. And honestly, a couple of people might. There was a girl in my tutorial group who passed out and landed face first on a cadaver. Poor thing. So yes, it's possible, but it's also not likely. Everyone's also terrified about fainting in the operating theatres when they're in clinical years too. The truth is, it is a lot more common there, and there's a few reasons for that. There's a lot of blood, the smell of cauterizing flesh, you're standing for long periods of time without any food or drink. But if you feel yourself going, you just speak up straight away. It's happened to me. I'd been scrubbed into a bowel operation for about 3 hours and felt myself starting to get a bit lightheaded and was like, whoa, take the retractors. And just stepped back. I just sat on the floor for a while, chatting to the surgeons and the nurses until I felt better. Then I went and doffed my PPE, got a water, got some food, and just came back and observed the end of the operation. On that same rotation actually, there was even a surgical registrar who had to step out, and they'd been operating for like 6 years. It's honestly so okay and not a big deal, and most of the time they expect medical students to pass out. I guess the last academic related thing would be to expect the unexpected, especially when it comes to dealing with patients. People will ask you some weird shit and behave very strangely when they're dosed up on analgesia or recovering from an anesthetic, particularly in the ED. The way that people hurt themselves is actually quite skilled. I've seen someone with a terribly dislocated knee because he was so invested in eating a bowl of eggs that he didn't see a stool and tripped over it. Another patient I had was standing on top of their caravan trying to sweep leaves off the roof when they fell backwards and caught their arm on a fence and tore their armpit open. Another lady squashed her head in a printing press. That one was probably not as bad as it sounds, but I did get to give her a few stitches, which is pretty cool. And then there's the geriatric patients, bless them, with dementia, smashing 4th floor windows with oxygen tanks, trying to escape. Oh, and I also had an elderly lady when I was on my GP placement ask if digital prostate stimulation would still feel good as her husband aged. And I said, just so we're clear, we're talking about your finger up his back passage. We were. I think it's one of my favorite parts of medicine when people trust you so deeply and are comfortable enough with you to ask absolutely anything. But yeah, definitely expect the unexpected. Okay. Now, in terms of the social side of medlife, does it exist? Is there much going on? Yes! Every uni will have a med society or medsoc for short, and they'll organise a heap of socials and symposiums and events. We have annual gala balls and yacht parties and scrub crawls and nights out where they'll generally reserve like an entire floor in a club and you get your first drink for free or something like that. There's also med camp, which is a rite of passage for first years. It's usually one of the first weekends of the semester. At my uni, they rented out a scout camp in the middle of nowhere. And then there's a series of events and activities that you do throughout the day, and then parties of a night. There was one massive leaky tin shed with bunk beds down either side, and that's where everyone slept. It was wild. I don't know if I'd do it again, but you definitely have to experience it once. Other things to consider in terms of accommodation. I lived on campus for the first year and it was a ghost town and I hated it. I'd say most people in my year got together in groups of like 4 or 5 and rented houses houses in the estate next to the uni. I did that during second year and found it worked really well. Everyone is studious and respectful through the week, but then on the weekend there was usually always a gathering at someone's house if you wanted to join in. If we're talking about your personal life, yes, you can make relationships work. You can still see family and friends and have a life outside of med. My family home is about 3 hours away from campus, which is very manageable for weekend trips. You can hold down part-time work. I worked at a pub during second year, still managed to end up with my best grades yet. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but it is a lot and I'm very fortunate at the moment that I don't have to work. You definitely still have time for team sports and going to the gym, and I would highly encourage that to keep your sanity. And yeah, I'd say that pretty much sums up what life is like behind all of the hours at med school. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and check out these videos to watch next.